Hey everyone, this is Brian Kelly from Association Mavens, where you get direct access to some of the foremost thinkers and teachers in the association industry. My guest today is Tom Morrison. Tom has worked in the association industry for almost 20 years and has been the CEO of the Metal Treating Institute since 2008. During his time in this role, his organization has grown its net worth 858%. Welcome to Association Mavens, Tom.
Brian, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it. We're here in Myrtle Beach working remotely, and I love technology because it allows us to communicate and do these fun things like this. So I'm glad to be here.
That's awesome. Well, I'm in beautiful Chicago. We've got a nice spring day. Not quite the same as Myrtle Beach, but I'll take it.
I closed the door so you couldn't hear the waves crashing.
Yes, thank you. All right, Tom. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you guys have been doing at the Metal Treating Institute down there in Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about the backstory? Like, where's the organization come from? What's the struggles that it's had with some of the major changes we've seen over the past decade or so, and what you guys are doing there to tackle those issues?
Well, MTI is a trade organization internationally. Most of our members live in 40 states and 8 countries, with most of them being in North America. And they're not unlike any other trade association that had its struggles coming out of the bad economy through the early 2000s. They have a traditionally baby boomer style membership and board. We're seeing now, which we'll get into later, a shift into a younger group of leaders, and we have a program that is fostering those new young leaders. But they're heat treating companies, and if you're not familiar with heat treating, every single piece of metal, we touch every aspect of a person's daily life. Every piece of metal that you would put your hands on, titanium, platinum, anything, has to be heat treated, steel, whatever, in this process. And I always tell everybody when I speak about what MTI does that if we don't do our job right, planes fall out of skies, cars go through stop signs, and that dental needle that goes in your mouth cracks as soon as it hits. So heat treating is definitely a major aspect of the manufacturing process of almost anything you would ever see. So that's what our members do. And our members, we have a very loyal membership base, but coming out of the bad economy of the early 2000s, we suffered a lot of things just like every other association is coming through. Even out of this one in 2009, members being disloyal, they had an issue with the change in dynamics of technology was passing them by, and the changing demographics of younger members was somewhat passing them by. And it wasn't that they didn't have all the resources they needed to change that. It was just they were challenged with the fact of putting things in place to make that happen. So, when I got there in 2005, I took them through a process of getting them back to looking at what they can do for their members that their members can't do themselves. That's my mantra that I'm gonna patent that, copyright that saying one day. But if you can focus on that as an association, then you have the golden handcuffs, because they can't get it anywhere else but you. And I know some associations have a lot of struggles with private companies getting into their meeting aspects, the training. But for most people, you want to own your space. And MTI fortunately owns its space. And I think we've done a good job pulling that together. And I can tell you today, you heard the 858% net worth increase. Our brand loyalty, our retention rates every year are 100%. And we lose companies when they can't afford the dues or they go out of business. But I always ask the question of people, if you have members that can afford to pay your dues and they're still in business and they're not renewing, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself why. And we did that in 2005. So we have created a strategy coming out of 2005, 2006 that today we have 100% retention rates. Our supplier revenue has gone up 126% in that time. Our non-dues revenue overall has gone up 132%. And that's led to, and that's a 12% dues membership increase, and an 18% dues increase with one of the deepest economic downturns right in the middle of it. So we're very excited. When you have a strong strategic plan and a strong leadership that allows that blend of staff and volunteers to work together, there's nothing that can stop you.
So, Tom, you've kind of threw out some big numbers. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really impressive, and I think I want to break it down a little bit more. You threw out a couple of nuggets that I want to explore to see how did you guys, accomplish this. So the one thing you mentioned was that your mantra, well, it was something about what can we do for our members that they can't do for themselves. So what does that mean? And to me, it seems like it's something related to providing more value. So in your association, what does that equate to? What have you guys done that gives them something that they can't do for themselves?
Well, we basically had, just like any other association, a list of things on our wall that you basically threw a dart at and said, one of these things are going to stick with a member. And you really can't do that any longer. You can't have that list of 100 things. It's been proven in marketing. If you put 50 pairs of socks or 50 jars of jelly on a shelf and people walk by, they're probably less likely to buy, but they're more likely to buy if they only had 5 choices, because it makes it easy for them to make a choice. So what we did was we narrowed our focus. We asked ourselves, what are the things can we do that they can't do themselves effectively? And a couple of those things are online training. Our members have a dire need for technical training and professional managerial training. So we now have over 200 hours of training online, and we've grown from 25 courses being taken a month in 2006 to now over 300, as much as 350 courses taken every single month on our online academy. It costs a member tens of thousands of dollars to have that same benefit by themselves, but through us, they get it through simply paying their dues and paying another nominal fee for the training. So that's another thing that we can do for them. Here and what your sales trends are going to be and costs are going to be for the next 12 to 24 months. We collect our members' monthly sales numbers through a third-party online forum that specializes in financial benchmarking, and we collect their quarterly ops costs. And they're able to download in real time the monthly trend, the monthly historical numbers, so they can see the trends, and then the monthly operational costs. Because if your maintenance costs are 3% higher than everybody else, 3% means everything in gaining a quote and a piece of business in our world. So if your maintenance costs are 3% above everybody else's, but you don't know that, you would never know why you're losing the business. But now with these quarterly ops costs with graphs that show you where your company's going, where the entire industry is going, and where your local region's going, it very visually allows a company to make some pretty darn good business decisions and know where they need to improve instantly. So financial benchmarking is a secondary thing. A third thing is professional leadership training. Every one of our businesses is in that same realm that many other trade associations are, in that they have a 55 plus man or woman that owns the business, and they're looking who's going to be the next leader of the company, who's going to carry the legacy. And we have a program that's building that legacy for them. It's called the Young Executive Series program. It's 4 incredibly intense sessions over 10 months that everybody that comes out of it says their life has been changed in terms of the management spectrum, but they also say personal life has changed. So emotionally, they're attached to the association. So we have graduated over 200 new leaders in that program in the last 6 years. I mean, that's practically one per company. So we're building our next mode of leaders. The last really big one is just the facilitating the networking thing. We have our own private community, Member Fuse, through as a private social network. We also have Twitter and as well as Facebook, but most of our members congregate through our private social network. So, and then we have our face-to-face meetings for networking. Members can network themselves if they wanted to, but there's nowhere else that they can go and tag into over 250 people like them in one environment and get that feedback. A lot of trust is built through our face-to-face meetings as well as our online networking. And so, so those are kind of the 5 key things that we feel we do better than anybody in the world, and it helps us own our space.
Excellent. So the next thing you threw out was you mentioned something called the golden handcuffs. What does this mean, and kind of how have you guys used this in your association?
Well, the golden handcuffs is back in the early to mid 80s. A lot of associations had self-insured workers' comp funds or competitive health insurance programs for their members, and they were called the golden handcuffs because they could not get insurance anywhere else better than the association marketplace. And so if you had a phenomenal program in terms of insurance, then you had those handcuffs. They would not leave you for anything because they would lose their insurance. Well, we have the golden handcuffs in a large degree in our association because if our member steps out the lines and leaves our association, they lose a few things. One of the benefits I did not talk about was we have a thing called the Statement of Limited Liability. It's on the back of every single member's invoice to their customers. It's a copyrighted legal document that limits their liability if something goes wrong in doing business with their customer. Their customer can only sue them for X times the charges that they would have charged them. So if you leave the membership, you lose the authority of that document being legally bound inside your corporation, because it's our document. You cannot use it. They would have to go spend tens of thousands of dollars to get the same kind of document put together. So whenever we have people that aren't paying their dues, we just send out saying you're going to have to remove these from your back of your documents. The dues come in pretty quickly. So those are the types of things that we talk about, the golden handcuffs. When the member's looking at your dues payment and he's about to sign it, what do you have that handcuffs him to you that makes him sign that check instantaneously?
Gotcha.
So that's what we refer to handcuffs. Will not be able to get somewhere else, so they have to stay.
Yep. Perfect. All right, so we've kind of explored a little bit about what you guys are doing at MTI. Let's go a little bit beyond that and talk about some larger concepts. So, one thing I've also heard you say at a conference or online somewhere was that your approach is that you're not in the membership business, and this idea that there's membership and then there's a movement. Can you talk about that and how that's not only been applied to MTI, but associations kind of across the board, or folks that you've interacted with and talked with?
Well, I always look at, I look at phenomenal movements. Occupy Wall Street was a phenomenal movement, but it failed because it didn't have an association budget. It didn't have a staff. All it had was a lot of loud screaming through social media. And I've always been a big believer that the association model is the strong. You will hear this out there in the association sphere from certain bloggers, that the association membership model does not work. That could not be farther from the truth. The association membership model is a common cause and a movement. So many associations think they're in the membership business. Their board and their staff have bought into a lie that we need to kick in membership 10% a year every single year. One, because we're losing members so much. So if you're losing members and having to get new members, you need to go back and look at what's your value proposition to them. We did that in 2006, and if you look at our total membership graph, our membership goes up just slow. It's only 12% over 8 years. But you look at our finances, it's gone up tremendously. Why? Because we've increased the engagement of our members doing those things for them that they can't do for themselves. Our per member revenue is up 33% in the last 7 years. That's a lot of money coming in that we don't have to go out and recruit new members for. So I'm a believer that if you're spending so much time recruiting new members in the membership business, you're forgetting to do the very things that your articles of a corporation, your bylaws, and your governing documents, your purpose statement tell you to do. I talk with, I don't know if you know Robert Barnes from Fitness Australia, and him and I Skype. He's in Australia. He's their COO, and him and I Skype about once a month on just, association challenges, because they're the same in Australia as they are here. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we talk about a great deal is we're not in the membership business. If we do the work if we do our purpose of our association better than anybody that a member could look at and become the authority, people that aren't a member would want to become a member. Now there's a gap there. Most associations do not know how to communicate that. To communicate what presentations you're taking some of this from is one of the keys is having an effective communication strategy. And most people think that is just an email campaign, and it is not. If you looked at MTIs, we're only a staff of 3, but we have a printed strategy with our newsletter. We have a quarterly piece, about 42 pages. It goes out in a larger magazine of 24,000 in our industry. We have a video strategy. I'm a big believer. Here's another one of my mantras I have. If you're an association without a video strategy, you're like a steak with no taste. People cannot really get the emotions of you if you're not telling them through video, because it's just like this conversation. Yep. If people were just to read the transcripts of this, they would not see and feel and hear any passion whatsoever. They go, wow, that was well written, good answers. But what makes people move to a movement is when they see leaders in their midst that they can buy into and trust and they want to follow. And that's what I think video really brings to the table. And then, we're stepping out. We stepped out in 2009 with a social media strategy with our private community, as well as now Facebook and Twitter and YouTube channel. So I'm a big believer. You have to do it all so that you can get 100% of your people, your members, reading and looking and hearing it from something, as opposed to most are trying to find the one or two things that they can funnel people through that cost the least, and they're going to lose about half their message if they do that.
Great. So we've got just a few minutes left. I did want to ask you about this presentation that you've recently delivered. I think I saw it at the Digital Now presentation a month or so back this year for 2013. It's got a provocative title. So it's called "How to Get Your Members to Scream Your Name and Beg for More." So what's this all about? Can you talk a little bit some of the high level points that you dig into with this particular presentation?
Well, I'm very passionate about associations really understanding this concept. The association model is the strongest model, and the problem with a lot of associations is their members aren't screaming their name. They're not their association's best advocate. And what my goal is with the presentation is I believe that you need to do in order for you to get your members to be your biggest advocates and to go from being just someone that collects dues to a group that has a movement like Mothers Against Drunk Driving. These causes that people come out. We're a cause, and we want to have a movement of passionate people that want to better themselves, and they want the association to be the middle conduit, the biggest connection they can do to do that. And out of this, Brian, is spawned, a lot of people said, Tom, you're in one place delivering this passionate talk in the country somewhere. You can't be in two places at one time. Well, I've proved them wrong again, because I've created the Association Revolution Challenge, which is my challenge to associations. And the typical presentation people are hiring me and paying me to come out and deliver, I've turned that into an online format to where they can sit with their board and watch my 70 minutes of teaching these 8 keys, and then I walk them through in a self-facilitated format with one of their leaders just moving the program. And by the end of that 4-hour program, that 4-hour day, they will have a true association action plan for the next 12 months. And I tell them, if you follow these keys and really find those benefits your members can't do for themselves, you should see, you may not experience the type of growth we've had, but you'll be going in a much more positive direction than what you normally are. But I can only speak from experience and speak from measurables, because when you look at the measurables, you can't argue with those. It really does work when you focus on those things.
Yeah. So I wanted to clarify, you're a believer in the membership model, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But what you're saying is it's leveraging that membership model in ways that provide better value for the members.
Absolutely. I do a great visual for in my presentation at the very beginning. And I tell everybody, if y'all then we can go to the Bloody Mary bar in about 5 minutes and cut this thing 50 minutes short. But we never do that. But what I do is I grab one of the leaders and put him on stage, and I ask him to scream at the audience of 200 people, I can do this alone. I can do this alone. And then I have the 200 people stand up and scream back as loud as they can, no, you can't, Brian. No, you can't. You need us. And I have them do that back and forth. And I ask the question, so if the market turns south, or government's passing legislation that's going to impact your company negatively, or you need the power of people to help get a better deal on something, who do you want to be? You want to be with the one guy on the stage? You want to be with the pack in the crowd that's 200 strong? It's such a powerful, everybody laughs and claps because they get it right then and there. That's why association models are so strong, is because we're stronger together. We're never stronger individually than we are together. And in associations, we bring that power of leverage to people.
Great. Well, Tom, that's a great note to end on. So thanks so much for joining me today, and thanks to everybody for watching. If you like this interview, be sure to sign up in the right-hand corner of the website to be updated via email when new interviews are posted. Also, be sure to follow @BrianKellyNow on Twitter to stay on top of all things Association Mavens related. And lastly, if you think a colleague or friend would find this interview helpful, make sure that you send them a link to the interview right now. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.